Hello and welcome. On behalf of Clean Code, I'm me, you are you, and this is Block Interview Question Employees with the Same Birth Month, our first attempt here at Clean Code to solve a hard interview problem in R. So, quickly reading through our question statement, we have identified the number of employees within each department that share the same birth month. Your output should list the department, birth month, and the number of employees from that department who were born in that said month. If a month has no employees born within a specific department, report this month as having 0 employees. And oh, by the way, the profession column stores the department name for the employees. Looking at our table schema here, we see, okay, everything's looking great. We got varchars in the date time column for birthday, and it looks like birth month has already been extracted for us. And if we examine the head of our table here, we can see, yeah, actually, that is the case. And that is what leads me to believe that Block is playing a little bit of a mind game with us with this problem. I spoke to some people who do these interviews for Block, and one of the things that they like to do is in like that on-site interview where you're doing, 6 to 7 interviews. Interview number 4, 5, they'll throw this kind of a curveball at you where they tell you it's a hard problem, and it is a very involved problem. This is a multi-step problem. There's no getting around that. However, much of the heavy lifting has already been done. But if you would take a brute force approach because you're tired and you don't want to pick your head up and take a minute and kind of find a great way to solve it, they're going to note that. So let's jump over into the notebook and let's see if we can't come up with a clever solution and write some clean code. Okay, here we are in our handy dandy notebook. Let's go ahead. I like to do this with any problem. I think it's super helpful. Let's go ahead and just reread the problem, but only to extract the key points. So we need number of employees, each department, same birth month. And now it specifically tells us what our output has to be. So we're going to denote that in a separate color, just so we can quickly do this in an interview situation. So department, birth month, number of employees. And then it gives us an operational consideration. It says, report this month as having 0, no employees born in it. So this is just a quick way. So when we're compiling our problem plan, when we're figuring out our helper functions, we can make sure that we're checking all the boxes. Because what we don't want to have happen is when we go from this plan step to the execute step, we have a gap. And that can be really tough to think on the fly how to go from 1 to 2 to 3 if you've only written down 1 and 3. So let's go down here to our data. Based on what we have, we don't need names. So we can go ahead and just cross those off. We also don't need employee ID. This is most likely a foreign key hanging out from the SQL. And we also don't need birthday because we have birth month. And now a 6-column problem has become a 2-column problem. And a 2-column problem is a lot easier to work with, in my opinion. This is why I kind of think Block is doing this to see after, when you're tired, when you're fatigued, can you still be light on your feet and come up with great solutions to these kinds of problems? So let's move on over. Let's make a problem plan next and see if we can't figure out some helper functions to get us to code. All right, let's go ahead and make our problem plan now. And we're going to start by drawing out what we're trying to accomplish. I think this is a really underrated tactic to use when you're trying to solve these multi-step complex problems. The entry-level salary at Block is $168,000 a year. For that much money, let's try and take every advantage we can to work these problems. So we have our big block of data, and kind of the first break we want to make is by department, and then the next break we want to make is by B month, and then finally the smallest break we want to do is count. Ultimately that's what we're trying to accomplish. Big block of data, department, birth month, and then the counts, and they all stack inside of each other nicely. So when we write our problem plan, step 1 is separate by department. Step 2 is go per B months, and kind of like a 2B is count per B month. And I think that, now that this is kind of our plan of attack, we can now come through and think what functions are going to enable us to accomplish this problem plan. All right. So in thinking it over and trying to work these problems, I think for libraries, We want two. We want dplyr and we want reshape 2, which is a very fancy little library, and we'll get into that in a second. But I think that in terms of data manipulation, we're going to want the group by. I also think we're going to want a summarize. Hopefully I'm spelling these right. And then we're also going to use a pipe. That's pretty standard. And then for reshaping our data, we're going to need a dcast because we are going to have to manipulate our data to get it the way we want. And this is going to come from our reshape library, reshape 2. And then for the utility, we're going to use some column names function, and then an index. And I think with these casted characters, we'll be able to accomplish our problem plan and derive an answer. So I will see you back in the code editor when we put it all together. All right, let's go ahead now and put together the first bit of our code. And I think, kind of step one, what we want to do is break everything out and then get our summary statistics ready, which is really just going to be count, but we could put any kind of summary statistic. So let's create a group by month column. And then from that, let's use our group by function to get our profession and our birth months together. And then I think we can get our counts using summarize. So I think this gets us the correct kind of data that we want. And this gets us in a place where now we just need to transform this information into an easier to read form. All right. Now that we have figured out the calculation part of it, let's work on reshaping the data so it's easier to read in a table format for our end user. That's where we're going to use dcast. We're going to create a new variable called birth counts. This will be our end variable, our solution variable. And we're going to use dcast. We're going to have profession going up and down here in the first position, birth month across the top, filling everything in with that total we calculated here on line 7. And then filling everything else with 0, which helps us meet this conditional of, hey, if there's no employees born within that department for that month, count it as a 0. If we go ahead and run our code now, everything looks nice. However, if we look over here at our month, we just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going across the top. We can clean this up. We can make it easier for our stakeholders. So let's go ahead and rename some columns so that it goes month 1, month 2, month 3, month 4, so on and so forth, just to make it nice. And then to make sure that there's no confusion in the code line, we're going to recall our end solution variable. We run the code. We have department, month 1, month 2, month 3. That's all looking good. We hit check solution, all green arrows. Our execution time is nice and fast. And I think this problem is done and dusted. On behalf of Clean Code, thank you for spending the time with me today. Stick around if you'd like a more in-depth breakdown line by line of what's happening. Otherwise, I will see you next time.